The wedding planner looked at me, then at my simple blue dress. She forced a polite smile. I'm sorry, the family seating is reserved. I smiled gently. I know. I'm the groom's mother. Her smile disappeared. Before she could answer, my own son walked over. He looked at me from head to toe. His expensive tuxedo. Perfectly pressed. Designer shoes. Luxury watch. Everything I had worked my entire life to help him achieve. He sighed. Loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Mom, I thought we talked about this. I frowned. Talked about what? He glanced around nervously, then whispered. Not quietly enough. You're making people uncomfortable. My heart stopped. Around us, conversations slowly faded. Several guests turned to look. I forced a smile. I'm sorry. I don't understand. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Mom, this is an important day. Most of Emily's family are executives. Doctors. Lawyers. He looked down at my old handbag. Then back at my dress. I just don't want people asking questions. I finally understood. He wasn't embarrassed by my clothes. He was embarrassed. By me. For a moment. I couldn't speak. 28 years of sacrifices. Flashing through my mind. The double shifts. The unpaid bills. The nights I skipped dinner. So he could eat. The winter I sold my wedding ring. So he could stay in college. None of it mattered. Because today, all he could see was an old woman in a simple dress. He quietly handed me an envelope. There's money inside. You can take a taxi home. I'll visit you next week. Before I could answer, a calm voice came from behind him. What exactly is going on here? Daniel slowly turned around. Standing only a few feet away was the bride, and from the look on her face, she had heard everything. The ballroom fell silent. Daniel slowly turned around. Standing just a few feet behind him was his bride, Emily. She wasn't smiling anymore. Her eyes moved from Daniel to the envelope in his hand, then to me. Finally, she asked one question. Daniel, why is your mother crying? Daniel forced an awkward laugh. It's nothing. Emily looked at him. I wasn't asking you. She gently walked over to me, took my trembling hand, and said softly, Mrs. Brooks, would you tell me what happened? I tried to smile. Oh, sweetheart. It's your wedding day. I don't want to ruin it. Emily squeezed my hand. You won't. But lies will. The room became so quiet that even the music had stopped. Every guest was watching. Daniel stepped forward. Emily, can we please do this later? She slowly turned toward him. No. We're doing this now. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried through the ballroom. I just watched you hand your own mother money, so she would leave your wedding. Explain. Daniel took a deep breath. You don't understand. My clients are here. My investors are here. I didn't want people asking why my mother looks. He stopped. Emily narrowed her eyes. Looks like what? Daniel couldn't answer. Emily turned back to me. Mrs. Brooks. Please. I hesitated. Then quietly said. He's worked very hard to build a successful life. I didn't want to embarrass him. Emily looked confused. Embarrass him? You raised him. I smiled sadly. Sometimes. Success changes people. An elderly man sitting at one of the front tables slowly stood up. It was Mr. Harrison, Daniel's high school principal. I'd like to say something. Everyone looked toward him. When Daniel was 16, he almost dropped out of school. He couldn't afford tuition. He looked directly at the guests. His mother worked 3 jobs. Morning, afternoon, and overnight. I know. Because every month, she came to my office and begged me not to tell her son she was behind on payments. Daniel slowly lowered his head. Another guest stood up. A middle-aged nurse. I remember Margaret. She worked night shifts at the hospital cafeteria, sometimes 16 hours straight. I once asked why she never bought herself a new coat. The nurse smiled sadly. She said, "My son needs a laptop for college." Several guests quietly wiped away tears. Emily looked at Daniel. "Is that true?" He whispered. "Yes." She stared at him in disbelief. "You never told me." Daniel couldn't meet her eyes. "I didn't want to talk about it." Emily replied. "No. You didn't want anyone to know where you came from." She gently turned toward me. "Mrs. Brooks, would you come with me?" I looked confused. "Where?" She smiled through tears. "To the front." Before I could answer, Emily took my hand. Together, we walked toward the wedding stage. Hundreds of guests watched in complete silence. Daniel stood frozen, unable to move. Emily picked up the microphone. "I planned to give one speech today, but after what I just witnessed, I need to give another." She looked around the room. "Everyone here knows Daniel as a successful businessman, but very few of you know who built the foundation beneath that success." She gently placed her arm around my shoulders. "This woman, my future mother-in-law, worked herself nearly to exhaustion, so the man I love could stand where he stands today." She looked directly at Daniel. "And today, he almost sent her home." The ballroom became painfully quiet. Emily continued. "When I was little, my father used to tell me, if someone forgets the hands that lifted them, they'll eventually forget how to stand." She looked back at me. "I won't let that happen today." Then, to everyone's surprise, Emily stepped away from Daniel, walked toward me, and asked the question no one expected. "Margaret Brooks, would you do me the honor of standing beside me, where my mother would have stood, as I begin this new chapter of my life?" My hands immediately covered my mouth. Emily's mother had passed away years earlier. I whispered, "Are you sure?" She smiled. "I've never been more sure of anything." Tears streamed down my face. I nodded. "Yes." The guests erupted into applause. Some stood. Others cried openly. But one person remained completely still. Daniel, watching the consequences of his own choices unfold before him. The applause slowly faded. But Daniel remained frozen. For the first time in his life, success couldn't hide his shame. He looked around the ballroom. Executives, business partners, friends, former classmates. Every pair of eyes was fixed on him. Not with admiration, with disappointment. Emily gently held my hand, then looked at Daniel. "I love you. But before this wedding continues, there's something you need to do." Daniel swallowed hard. His voice barely came out. "What?" Emily answered quietly. "Look at your mother." He slowly turned toward me. For several long seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he whispered, "I'm sorry." I smiled sadly. "You're apologizing because everyone is watching." His eyes filled with tears. "No. I'm apologizing because, for the first time, I finally see what I've become." He walked toward me. Each step seemed heavier than the last. When he reached me, he pulled an old leather wallet from his pocket. Inside was a faded photograph. A little boy, holding his mother's hand, standing outside a tiny apartment. He smiled through tears. "I've carried this picture every day. But somewhere along the way, I forgot the woman standing beside me." He looked at the guests. "When I entered the corporate world, I became obsessed with fitting in. I started believing expensive suits, luxury cars, and powerful friends defined success." He looked back at me. "I was so afraid people would judge where I came from, that I ended up judging the person who brought me here." The ballroom was silent. Daniel slowly dropped to one knee. Not because it was dramatic, because he couldn't carry the weight of his guilt any longer. He took my hands. "Mom, when Dad died, you worked 3 jobs. You skipped meals. You sold your wedding ring, so I could stay in college. You never missed one graduation, one baseball game, one birthday. And today, I tried to send you home. He couldn't continue. His tears said the rest. I gently lifted his chin. Daniel, look at me. He did. I forgave you. The moment you realized your mistake. He looked surprised. You did. I nodded. A mother's love doesn't disappear because her child loses his way. It waits for them to find their way home. Emily quietly wiped away her tears. Then smiled. This is the man I wanted to marry. Not the one who cared about appearances. The one willing to admit when he was wrong. She reached for Daniel's hand. Then mine. She placed our hands together. No family is perfect. But every family deserves the chance to heal. One of the wedding guests, an elderly gentleman, slowly stood and began clapping. Then another. And another. Within seconds, the entire ballroom was on its feet. Not celebrating wealth. Not celebrating status. Celebrating humility. The wedding planner approached me with a smile. Mrs. Brooks. We've added one more chair. She pointed to the front row. The seat beside Emily's father. The one that had been left empty in memory of her late mother. Emily looked at me. I can't replace my mother. But today, I'd be honored if you sat beside my father. I couldn't hold back my tears. I'd be honored. The ceremony began again. This time, as Daniel walked toward the altar, he didn't look at the guests. He looked at me. And smiled. The same smile he had as a little boy, when he believed his mother could fix anything. Months later, Daniel visited my home every Sunday. Not because he felt guilty. Because he wanted to. Sometimes we'd cook together. Sometimes we'd laugh over old photo albums. Sometimes we'd simply sit on the porch, watching the sunset. One afternoon, he quietly handed me a small velvet box. Inside was a simple gold wedding ring. Not my original one. That had been sold years ago. But one almost identical. He smiled. You sacrificed yours. So I could have a future. I can't give you those years back. But I can remind you that they were never forgotten. I hugged him tightly. No gift will ever mean more than having my son back. A year later, Emily gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. When they asked who should hold the baby first, Emily smiled. The strongest woman in this family. She placed her daughter into my arms. Daniel laughed through happy tears. She earned that title a long time ago. People often believe success is measured by promotions, luxury homes, or bank accounts. But the greatest success is never becoming too important. To honor the people who sacrificed everything for you. Because one day, the applause will fade. The titles will disappear. The money may come and go. But the way you treated those who loved you will become your true legacy. And Daniel finally understood that the woman he once called an embarrassment was the greatest blessing his life had ever known.